Alright, so first things first, everybody says unhook the batteries. This one's only got one dead battery in it and no battery on the other side. So what I'm going to do is knock this boot off. I might have put the wrong size on it. Let's head out with it. Give me a second here. The bolt's a little long. There we go. I think I'll just take the top one off. One thing I do not like about these ratchets is they don't, on these band clamps, they don't break it loose as easy. That'll be loose enough. What we'll do is we'll take something, pry that off of it, and just push it out of the way. Alright, so trying to do all this and hold the camera at the same time, not working out very good. This is popped off. I just kind of push it to the side and pretty much get access to it. I had two different size clamps on it apparently. I don't know if it was my doing or what happened over the years. Next, we'll go ahead and pop this intake off. You've got these 4 bolts, which I think are all 10mm, and then you'll have this one if it's connected up on the actual dipstick tube. May have to put an extension on. I think I had a lot of pressure underneath. I'm just going to push this over to the side. You can unhook it, take it off if you want to. I might go ahead and untake it off and clean it, sandblast it, maybe coat it in some paint. Get a good look down in here. Not bad. What we're going to do is shove a rag down in it, and what I do is I actually shove a rag down in it and then I tape over the top of that rag. Then when I pull the tape off, it pulls the rag and everything out with it. That's my way of doing it. Everybody can do it their own way. So I'm going to grab that stuff and be right back. And next we're going to go through and actually remove the app sensor or the throttle position sensor, whatever you want to call it, to this one. Only 3 bolts, 13mm if you need to know. There's up there, and again, this can be just pulled up out of the way. There is one connector on it, as you can tell here, and this does have that aftermarket. Sorry, camera's in the way. It does have an aftermarket piece. I've added in there. So for now, we're just going to slide that out of the way. Now, there's a lot of talk back and forth about how many injector lines you pull off on this thing. I've watched multiple videos where they say you have to take all the injector lines off. I've seen some that says you only got to take 3 of the injector lines off. Ideally, I don't want to take them all off. If you look back in here, bit of a challenge to get back in there. But either way, we'll do what's got to be done. We are redealing the fuel line on this thing. I remember when this was done, late one night, ran out of parts, and the air dog system actually went back to my canister. I've got the T-fittings and everything to put it in here, so I can hook up my fuel pressure gauge, so I can monitor fuel pressure on the lift pump. So all that stuff will be changed here shortly, and we'll kind of go through how we're doing that as well. For right now, we're going to move on to the injector lines and see if we can get to taken off. 3/4 here, and I'll look and see what it is down there. I'm going to make the assumption it's the same, but it could be very wrong. Oh, 3/4 will work, 19, whatever you're into. So I don't know if I can get a good picture of this. I'll see if I can get the light down in there. Reset the camera. Hold on one second. Give you a better idea of what I'm looking at here. See if I can get the camera down there. See all the fuel lines? See the pump tap? That's the pump tap that has to be made if you guys are not familiar with the Quadzillas. Now this one I bought a stealth box cover for. Now I'm going ahead and pulling the fuel line off now. It's kind of in the way for me to get to the, loosen the injector lines up. As I said, this thing hasn't run in a long time. It does have fuel up here because I was doing priming and testing and making sure it wasn't something else that was the problem originally. I actually bought this piece from Quadzilla, if I remember correctly. And then I added this. I highly suggest that. They probably got something different now. Like I said, this has been, gosh, I don't know how many years it's been since I put that system on, but it's been in there a long time. It's a very good system. I like it. This truck never produced the power I thought it needed to. I've always thought there was an underlying issue somewhere, and we're going to find out if it was the pump the whole time, or if there's something else I need to be looking into. So there's your return line, your pressure line. You can see how the hose is cracked here. Short piece of stubby hose. I'm going to go ahead and take the fuel canister out, mainly because it's not being used. Really no point in being under the hood if you ask me. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out too, and we'll get the injectors popped off, the injector lines popped off, and I guess you guys don't really need to see that. Everybody's seen it. But what I'm going to try to do differently is I'm going to try to take these outside 3 here, so you can see it on camera. Take these 3 off, and then I'm going to pull the 3 off at this side up here, set them this side, and then I'm going to break the line holds off and see if these will just push out of the way. Now I know you're not supposed to do that. Anybody comments, I get it, but for this truck, it's mine. If I can save 30 minutes, I'm probably good. All right, as you can see, I went ahead and took out the fuel canister and the factory lift pump that was in there. There was no point in having it there. It was bypassed, wasn't being used. So, taking off, it's hard to see in this camera probably. I've taken off a few of the fuel lines. Next I'm going to take off the clamp right here. You can't really see it too good. And I'm going to try to take off the set of 3 fuel lines, and then see if I can break the other ones loose and possibly make it work without taking all of them off. Again, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that say you can't do that. But end of the day, I'm going to try it anyway. I did break these loose off camera, so they're not normally this loose if you're watching this stuff. Sorry, I know the camera's shaky. I'm trying to do all this and hold it at the same time. that. Hang on, put a 10 millimeter there. Let's see, I'm sure there's another clamp on that thing. Those should come off together. Oh, helps take this one off too. Can't really see these too good. Did buy me some new underhood lights today so I can see a little bit better. Alright. There's the first set off of them. Just gonna set them down here for now. That should allow me to look in here and break the other ones loose. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other ones broke loose, and then if I can bend them out of the way, I'm gonna put it on video. Alright, so it looks like I'm gonna be able to see if I can get the camera down in here. Looks like I'm gonna be able to move those out of the way. I'll show you here in a minute. I'll get the thing set up, but right now we're gonna go ahead and pull off the clamp off the, I call it a puke hose. I think it's part of the crankcase breather, to be honest with you. Go ahead and pull that off. Sorry, again, I'm trying to hold the camera and do this. Right, I'll have to set the camera down for a second. See if I can set it down so you can actually see what I'm doing. Also got one of those fancy tools that takes this thing off. They really ain't worth the metal they're printed out of. They probably have their place. Stuff like this, you can get a pair of standard pliers on it. You're in good shape. Alright. Puke hose. Looks like it's been puking. Get that up here. Alright, if I remember right, this just twists and come off. Yeah. Doesn't look that bad. No, I think it's not the worst one I've seen. See. I don't know if we can get down in there to see that or not. Alright, you can see the nut. What we got to do is make sure the key is in the right spot. So we're going to pop that nut off first. And I think, I'm going to check it, but I'm pretty sure that's a 27 millimeter. That might be wrong. That might have been what I was working on earlier today. Let me check it. I'll be right back. So it is a 27. I know something I was working on earlier today had a 27 in it. And I was kind of surprised this was it. I'm actually going to leave the nut on there for a minute. There's no point taking it out yet. You know, disclaimer, do not lose the nut and washer. Every video you watch on this will all tell you the same thing. I still have to take the mounting bolts off. And in here, if you can see that, let me get the light down here. I gotta clean all the dirt daubers out of it. See down in there? But gotta get all those bolts out, and can't really hold the camera and do that one. Couldn't really film the rest of them coming out, but you, oh goodness, can't even see in there anymore. Alright, see that one? And there's one beneath it. I don't know if there's any way in the world I can get a light down there and show you. There you go. There you go. Camera don't focus. Focus. There it is. So you do that bottom, and then it takes an 8-inch extension and a 15mm, or a 6-inch extension and a 15mm deep well. The ones on the other side that you're getting ready to see here, those can be done with a wrench or a standard socket. You can pretty much get to those pretty easily. Right there. You can tell that's the last one to be put on here. Sorry, this camera's shaking. I said the last one to be put on, but it's actually the last one to be taken off. I have noticed that the studs are actually coming out with them now. Didn't happen on one side, but it's happening on this side. Really doesn't upset me that much. You can always put them back in. Sometimes the amount of rust doesn't allow the socket head to come off. Alright, that's what they look like if the ends doesn't come off. And their studs, I'll put it up here. So the two of them come out with the studs, and the other ones are not. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Now, I'm going to put the camera down to do this, because if I lose this, I got to take the engine apart. Hold on 1 second. Success. This is off there. Did not drop inside the engine. It's a good start. So next we're going to look in and get you want the keyway vertical. That way when you pull the pump out, the key doesn't fall down in there. So there's a lot of back and forth here, but I don't know that I can show this on the camera, but I'll see if I can put a mirror in there and show it. Alright, let's see if I can get you in here where you can see this. Alright, there's the mirror, and you can see that little cut in it, and see the notch. And as you go up, see a mark on the timing cover. That's what you want to do. You want to put that keyway in line there. So this one actually stopped pretty darn close to where it should be. I don't even know if I'm going to mess with it. It's so close. We'll see here. So I'm going to go get the tool to push it out, and we'll kind of see if I can record that. Let's see if I can show this tool to you. This is, I bought this from Thoroughbred, but I think it's made by Industrial Injection. But it's just a piece of metal, presses against the front of the gear, and a lot of times I'll press against the front of the shaft, not the gear. A lot of times I like to leave the nut on it to do that, push it in a little farther, but for this particular case, I think it'll be all right. It doesn't put enough pressure on it to matter. However, this thing has never been apart. So this original one on the engine, so just pushing on the front here, so just tightening these bolts up and pushing on the front may not push the pump out. I would suggest either prying on the back somehow while you're tightening them up, because I'm afraid it's just going to pull the gear more than it's going to push the actual pump out. But we're going to give it a try. I don't know that I can do this on camera. Actually, I know I can't do it on camera. I don't have enough hands yet. But I'll see if I can get it loose, and then I'll take the video again. So perfect example of what I was talking about, getting it snugged up. You can see how much is, see the gear moving? Alright, so the gear moves before it pushes the actual shaft out, which is it's okay. It's just got it broke loose. I just need to check and make sure I did to get all the bolts out of it and can get it broke loose on the backside. I'm just trying to show an example of why I said you want to pry on in the back of it if you possibly can, without obviously breaking anything to damaging the. So the unit is out now. I wasn't able to film it. I've had some issues. Apparently, stupid me forgot to take. Drop a light in here. This right here. I didn't show it on camera. There's two bolts going to the backside end that holds the bracket on the bottom of the injection pump, and I took them loose, but then forgot to take them all the way out, and I was wondering why I was struggling so much. Didn't record it. I'm going to show you the bracket I'm talking about. I'm going to take it off and blast it and paint it before it goes on the new pump. This one right here. And you can see how the two bolts go into the back of that one. So I'm going to get this thing knocked off and sandblast it and then get it ready for paint before it goes onto the new. Alright, so this is a T50 Torx. And I am using a little battery impact for it. Makes it pretty simple to take apart. Just like that. And I'll go put this in the blast cabinet, get it blasted out, and then it'll be painted with the same color as the pump. And then see, there's a new injection pump. Pretty nice. You do have to include your overflow valve with the old ones, and I might put links below on the. You can buy the pumps through me for a discount, or you can buy them through Thoroughbred. Seems to be a good company to work with. They do come with a new overflow valve, 2-year warranty on the pump, and as long as you don't do the pump tap, but we are going to put the box cover in. So hopefully that'll cover that. All right, we're going to start prepping the new pump to go back in. The new vp44 pump to go back in its place. I do have a stealth box cover here. I did buy this one through Thoroughbred as well, just to prevent having to do a wire tap, because I really don't like voiding the warranty. I'm not exactly sure whether this prevents voiding the warranty or not, but we're going to find out. So a couple things that I do differently. I do not use the factory connectors that come with it. As you can tell, there's really no protection from the elements here. Some people say it doesn't matter. However, I'll put my own on there. Heat shrink connectors are the only thing that I suggest using, whether it's this or pretty much anything else automotive or marine related. So based on the instructions, it's pretty straightforward. You got to take the cover off. This does help. This is a lot easier when it's not on the vehicle, so go ahead and do it now to prevent taking it back apart again later. So I will not be able to finish this completely because you need to be able to see that it's tapped into the wire correctly. But we're going to get as much of it done as we can, and then the rest we can do on the truck once it's done. It does come with tamper-proof Torx that you need to do the job, so that makes it convenient. I had plenty of them here, but at the same time, it's nice when it actually comes with the tools. Just get all these taken out. I'm just going to set it over here to the side for now. It does come with a set of instructions. As you can tell, they pretty much pretty detailed what you need to do. So, not, I guess it helps you start on page 1, but pretty simple stuff. You can see that. I think it costs, I don't know, $60, $70, something like that. Might be a little pricey for what it is, for just being a piece of plastic, but at the same time, if it keeps you from having any issues if you do have a problem with your vp44, if it actually prevents any kind of warranty issues, it's probably worth it. You can always take this off, put the other one back on, and you're good to go. try to make sure I always put them back in the same spot they were. It may not make a difference. I've always learned that it does help a little bit. You never know, some of the bolts might be a little shorter than others. I just finger tighten this, and then I'll go back and snug it up. It really doesn't take, you really don't have to torque these things down very hard. There's no point in getting carried away with it. I will tell you from looking at the pump, Thoroughbred does a great job when they reman these things. And so far I'm pretty impressed. We'll see how the performance is, obviously, after we get it back on the road again, which is still going to be a little while. Like I said, I wanted to get this done and get the core returned. Alright, next step. As you can tell, this is a little piercing tool here. So you're just going to take it and thread it in. I'll probably end up taking this back out because I prefer to put Loctite in these things. Just to keep them from moving. And maybe even some dielectric grease to prevent some of the corrosion that may take place. I know that might be overkill. I don't know how tight to make this for now. Just going to kind of get it started. And we can always tighten it up later. So your wire goes on here. Now obviously you probably want to point it towards the back where the other wire is. And just start this. Like I said, I'm not going to tighten this up yet. Just because I need to be able to put a voltmeter on it and actually measure when it's pierced into it. Hold on to your cap. You might need it later. And if you keep those connectors, hold on to them. Here's your Allen tool. And I said it does come with a tamper-proof Torx. So this part's pretty simple. So after the cover's put on, I'm going to go ahead and put this bracket here. Sorry, I'm hitting the camera. Bracket here back on. I didn't show taking it off the truck. I did show taking it off the pump, but it's pretty simple to put on. It only fits in one location, really. I mean, I guess you could put it on... Well, you probably could put it on the back as well, but that wouldn't really work out too good. So as of right now, it's ready to be put on the truck. If I would have done it properly, when I took the old pump out, I could have lined the keyways up. Let's see if you can see that keyway. I could have lined the keyway up here with the one as soon as I took it out, but instead I ended up rotating the old one over, so I'm going to have to line it up a different way. We just want to make sure that when we put it in there, it is lined up perfectly, or we'll just push this keyway all the way out. So the next video will be hopefully it going on the truck. I'm going to try to get this pump in here. We'll go ahead and get it off the workbench. Again, I did not clock it the right way. This could work out good, or might not. I do think if you go through the extra steps of taking these injector lines off, it does go back in a little easier. However, I do think this way saves a little time. You do what you want on your chassis. because I didn't clock this thing in here right, it's gonna fight me a little bit. The idea, if you really don't want to push that pin out, these injector lines do get in the way. So keep that in mind if you decide not to take them off. When you get to put the pump back on, they are in the way. If that key was in the right spot, it should fall right in there. However, this key's not in the right spot. So let me pause the video here and see if I can get that key changed. It did take me a little bit to get the keyway put in through the gear. I kind of fought that for a minute, and I think a lot of people do. But it is in there now. I am going to tighten up the front nut and washer. I am going to put a little bit of blue Loctite. I use Vibrotite, or you can use the actual Loctite itself. I've had pretty good luck out of this. May not be necessary, but I'm one of these better safe than sorry. So we'll get this put on here. Try to prevent falling down. So you don't want to lose these any way possible, because if they fall off, you're taking the front timing cover off, and to get that off, you got to take quite a few other things off. If I was going to do all that, I might as well have bought a P-pump system for it, which I really thought strongly about. So I'd already tightened it up before, and then taking it back off to do a few things. So I'm not going to do the 25 foot-pounds then torque the back, because I'd already done that before. I believe the torque is 125 on this one. I'm just going to bump it up in steps. Now we're ready to do the final torque on it. You normally want to have a barring tool for this. I don't have one with handy, so I can tell you for sure that when I took it off, it was nowhere near this tight. Either way, that shouldn't even go anywhere, even if there wasn't a keyway in it at all. I was going to try to take some pictures of the keyway. The keyway in it was in a little bit of an angle on this one, and had to go back and fix it a couple times. It's still not perfectly flat, but it can't slide out the back. The gear covers the whole keyway, so if it ever gets problems, I'll know what the problem is there. Alright, so after the front piece is put on, you can go ahead and put the breather back on if you want to, or I'm actually going to go in and probably go ahead and put the injector lines back on individually, get all those put on, and then go over and put the breather back on. Alright, sorry there's going to be a little bit missing out of this video here, but pump is in. I think I went over it in the last section. Put this piece back on, and working on getting the injector lines put on, and then we'll put the fuel supply and return on the system. So we can get it fired up. I am waiting on the gaskets for the intake plenum. They should be here tomorrow or the day after, something like that. So we'll go through and hook the injector lines up. As I said, I did not take these off the truck, and best I can tell, they seem to line up pretty close. I mean, I had to move one a little bit, but I did not have to actually bend it out of the way. So if you want to try it that way, go right ahead. It seems to work pretty good for me. I mean, ideally, if you can take it off and go ahead and replace that intake plenum gasket while you're in there. If the vehicle has enough miles and is old enough, and believe me, every one of these engines are old enough now, go ahead and do it while you can. So some people might comment on the way that I tighten these fittings up, but I tighten them, loosen them, then tighten them back up again. So take these. I do try to keep the ends of them pretty cleaned up. I pulled the tape off of them. The injector lines themselves, they're starting to look a little rough though. But that's all right. Need to clean my tools up. Like I said, try to keep tape over everything possible. It'll just prevent you having any issues in the future. Well, I don't want to say prevent it. But if you can keep trash out of the injector lines and have the injectors especially, yeah, you're light years ahead of the game. Well, else I take the bolt out. So I'm going to go ahead and start them on the pump here, just to get them started. Do your best to make sure they're lined up. And as you can tell, these are not quite fitting in there straight. Once you get them, and they're pretty straight, these should thread in. When you got that, go back and put your all your bolts in the intake plan that holds it down. Should be to go. Now I'm not going to tighten these up here, because when I go to bleed it, it'll be helpful having these loose. There's a different bleed procedure. Everybody's got their own. I bleed it like I do just about any mechanical diesel engine. But you can always look up online and do it the way it's suggested. But a lot of these Cummins engines never were that bad to bleed, if you ask me. I guess you can really see what I'm doing back here. A bit of a time getting one of them started. You'll take that in the end of the line where it goes into the cylinder head here, and if you'll just push that line into the cone, that thing will usually thread on just about every single time. Now I got these started, I can go through and go ahead and put my bolts in if I want to. I can tighten the lines up. I do like to go ahead and start them. Not that many of them. If you get them started, then go back and tighten them up later. Or probably tighten them up now, but I do like to have the lines started and tightened up before I clamp these down. Most likely, if you're watching these videos, you've watched 100 other people do it. And as they tell you, don't take these things apart. I can, yeah, I recommend don't taking those apart as well. Sometimes you have to, but if you don't mess with it. I'll tighten these up with my finger as far as they'll go. Sometimes you got to leave these unhooked to tighten them up. Sometimes you don't. We'll see how these turn out. I have already torqued the back two down before I put these lines in. Some people like to bleed them here at the pump and then bleed them up top. Me, I just bleed them up top. I don't worry about it here at the pump. It'll push the air out that far. Main thing is just keeping the trash out of it. If you want to go through all this work, just end up having trash inside the injectors. It's easy enough to diagnose, but you still don't want to deal with it. I work on a lot of small diesel engines, Kubotas, 3 cylinders, on generators, air compressors, things like that. And one of the most common things I see is, well, injection pump gelled up to the point that you just got to just go in and clean them all, or trashing the actual injector. Just a matter of taking it apart and getting it clean most of the time. So now that I have that done, here's your fuel supply line, and here's the overflow or return. I'm actually going to put the overflow in first. I'm going to take this back out. I stuck it in here to keep trash out. I had to plug this in the core back, so let me see. I don't know what size that cap is, to be honest with you. It's this size. Never know when you're going to need an adjust 4-inch. Works good for this. Hold on, those little caps are kind of handy. I'll grab the overflow back. All the new ones you buy from Thoroughbred come with a new overflow valve, and they're actually tested with the pumps. So I say that just to say, don't leave your old one in there. Go ahead and put the new one in there because it was tested with it. Make sure you have the seal on one side, get through the line, and seal on the other side, and then thread it into your pump. You don't have to torque it down too bad, just snug it up a little bit. There's not a lot of pressure there. Put your new, this is the one off the Air Dog, okay? Like I said, this used to be in my canister, and I don't remember why I did that. I'm sure that was back then, it was probably just to get the injector, excuse me, the fuel pressure sender line, fuel pressure sender put in the line. And now I've got a different way of doing it. I got an adapter to do that with. So we're going to put this straight into the vp44 this time, which should give me a 1/2 inch of fuel line from the tank all the way up. And I've made some new fuel lines for these as well. Oh. One size. Again, you don't have to over torque it. I'm not going to take that much. So now when I go to hook up the line, that's just a quick connect here. I don't know if you can see that or not. And then this one's already hooked up. So this is a factory steel return line. I'm probably going to change that eventually. I'm not worried about it right now. So from here, I can go ahead and hook up the electronics here. Once all these lines are tightened up, I can tighten down these, go ahead and snug these up a little bit, and then I can start putting the intake plenum and everything back on. And I'm going to fix one vacuum line I have in here. Repair it. Just put that on. Alright, it's locked in place. Move. Electronics are hooked up, injector lines are hooked up. Now it's just a matter of putting in the fuel lines. And let me see where the... Aha. So this is push lock hose, Parker push lock hose. You can buy something similar off from Eaton, or there's probably 100 different brands of it out there. So the ones on this truck were just dry rotted beyond use, mostly from sitting. And turned the key on the first time, diesel fuel went everywhere. It was not funny at all. I mean, it piled diesel fuel up in the garage. Looked underneath the truck and there was this diesel fuel going everywhere. Every line was cracked on it. So it's probably worth planning on changing these. Drop some wrenches. Probably worth planning on changing these, especially if the truck sits for any length of time. Most of the time in the air compressor world, I get about 3 to 5 years out of some push lock hose, which is pretty good considering the temperatures and everything they run at. And the pressures, but since you're running at such low pressures and temperatures on this, it may or may not even make a difference. Alright, that one's hooked up. Just routed where it's not rubbing, and I will put a piece of loom on this because I do not like these hoses rubbing anything. So I can move them, adjust them however I want to. It's probably going to go down here and just have a piece of loom, high temperature loom going all the way up and down to the air dog system. Alright, from here, we're just going to tighten up our fasteners. For 10mm, battery's about dead. And it's got one light on it. I have the gaskets that are going to go in here now. I'm going to try to pull this back without getting any trash inside the intake. See if we can get this put on. Alright, actually it looks pretty good. Oh, see, I didn't get this cleaned up, so piece I missed. I'm going to shove this back in here as good as I can. Then I'm going to take my little cleaning tool and the shop vac and see if I can get it to work here. So normally you want to try to seal this off before you do this. You really don't want to do it this way, but what I do, take the vacuum, take the grinder, figure out which way it's turning, and you can usually suck up most of it. Maybe I can do this without turning the camera over this time. I used the shop vac while I was grinding it. Not grinding, but polishing, taking the little gasket off. Those little wheels work pretty good. They keep it pretty clean, and the small particles can be picked up by the vacuum. I did pick up some gaskets. One of them actually has a bad spot in it from the looks of it. So I did put a little silicone on it because I really need to get this thing operational today. I really need to have it fired up and running today, or at least checked. I can always put another one back on it. That's no big deal. At the intakes, I did clean it up a little bit, and there goes the gasket. That's okay. Put it on. It helps if you turn it the right way. When you take these apart the first time, these things will be stuck together. I took them apart so I could change the gaskets. You probably can get away with it without doing that. However, I was not taking the chance. I'd rather just have new gaskets put in it anytime you take something apart. You hear me talk a lot about cheap insurance, and that's just one of those things. It's cheap insurance. Well, I forgot my tool. Hold on. I don't remember what size that was. Oh, how about 2? Alright, and I just snugged them down. I'll go back and torque them here in just a moment. No big deal. But for now, I just want to get this stuff put back together. Before I do that, I might want to put this other piece in. I guess that knocking the camera down again. Probably should have done this before I put the intake on, but before I put that on, I am going to finish this piece here. It's underneath it. It's where it needs to be. I'll get this snugged up and get the batteries hooked back up, and then I'm going to check my wire tap here, make sure it's good, and go from there. Alright, everything's back together. Can't really see everything in there, but I still got a lot of electrical gremlins to get worked out of this thing. Let's see if we can get it to fire. I have not fired it yet. I know the gauges don't work, and it may not fire, as we discussed in earlier video or one of the other videos. I don't think the ECM's any good in this truck. See, Quadzilla is not even coming on this time, so there's something still not hooked up. It's not sounding promising. There's fuel coming to the injectors now. Be nice if not. I could see the fuel pressure. Wonder where it's hooked up at. I'm gonna break these lines loose and do some more bleeding. Alright, added some fuel to the tank. Let's see if we can hurt her pop a little bit. Let's see if we can get her to fire over here. Ooh, come on. Sounds like she's out of time. Ugh. Smells like burning diesel. Let's grab a few injectors here. Keep in mind, this thing could have plenty more issues outside of just what I've changed so far. I'm going to break these loose, see if I can get a little bit more fuel flow through here. I do have the air intake off. Any of you guys that's worked with diesels long enough, had one run away. Let's see how we look. It's really hard to do this by yourself. There's diesel fuel coming in. Not as much out of those back ones. It's a little concerning. Sorry, this video is going to be terrible. Me trying to hold it, work at the same time. I usually try to tighten them up after I get them fired or have somebody turning it over for me. Not really an option here. I got plenty of fuel coming out of number one. Say these things will fire on one cylinder. Yeah, I know I got jumper cables from battery to battery. I got bad battery cables going to the block, so I had to ground it a different way. Let's try again. Alive again. 5 years in the brush. It's smoking pretty good right now, but it has been sitting a long time, so maybe it'll clear up some. I'd really like to be able to see my fuel pressure, but for some reason it's not working. I'll check it here in a second. My gauges are dead. I don't know if it's a fuse problem, electrical problem, or if it's actually got a problem with the ECM. Hard to say right now, but that'll be on the next project list. So I'm just going to let it run for a little bit, shut it back off, and do some electrical work, see if I can get the gauges back so I can see what everything's going on. Well, thanks for watching. If you got any questions, comment, text, email. Stay tuned for more.